Was sind deiner Meinung nach die wichtigsten Verhaltensänderungen, die in Bezug auf den Klimawandel geschehen müssen?
What are some key changes that we can expect in this new world? Well, we know already that it isn't a case of going back to what we already had. The world is different, permanently so. So the question is, what do we do with this turning point? In some places, unfortunately in the United States, where I live, it's been taken as an opportunity to roll back environmental legislation, to increase the pollution of our air and our water that actually makes us more vulnerable to many health-related issues, including coronavirus. It's being used, the stimulus package is being used to shore up the fossil fuel industry. But in many other places, there are positive examples of changes that are being accelerated as we respond to the pandemic. For example, cities from Bristol to Milan are increasing their pedestrian and walkable areas in downtown. Air France, I just read today, is having to cut their carbon emissions by 50% in order to get government support. Other cities are investing in green infrastructure and creating new jobs. Here's the thing. The new clean energy economy does not necessarily mean less jobs. In fact, in the United States already, there are more jobs in the solar energy industry alone than there is in the entire fossil fuel industry. Yes. Not only that, but per megawatt of electricity produced where I live, clean energy, wind and solar here in Texas, produces 8 times more jobs than if that same energy is generated from fossil fuels. And the fastest growing new jobs in the United States as a whole are either in the solar energy industry or the wind energy industry. So the whole idea that we have to destroy the economy and throw everybody out of work to wean ourselves off fossil fuels is not true. There are opportunities, but those opportunities have to be offered to people because people need them. Then there's personal examples. We've all realized that maybe we don't have to travel so much. I've spent a lot of time the last few years transitioning about 80% of the talks I give to virtual talks, and even up until just a few months ago, people would say, oh no, we can't do one of those. And I would say, please try. And often they would say, okay, but sometimes they would say still no. Well, guess what? All of the talks that said no to me in the last few months have come back during the quarantine and said, hey, I remember you offered to do this virtually. Would you be willing to do it? And I said, yes, of course, I'd love to. So there's definitely personal choices that we can make, recognizing that maybe we can live a different way. Maybe we can value things in our family, our community, our homes more. Maybe we don't have to be traveling as much or eating out as much or living in the way that we did before. But the bottom line is this. What we most lack, not only when it comes to recovering from the pandemic, but when it comes to fixing climate change, what we most lack is a vision of a better future. We're confronted with apocalyptic visions on both sides of what will happen to the world if we don't fix climate change, or visions of the terrible things that will happen to jobs and the economy and people if we do fix climate change. But the reality is, when it all comes down to it, we all really, truly value the same things. The health and the safety of our friends and our families and our communities, and we all want that better world. So there was an amazing book that was written by Christiana Figueres, who of course was the architect of the Paris Agreement. After the Paris Agreement, she went out and she wrote this book. And this book, more than anything I've read, although there's certainly many good documentaries and news articles I've also read too, but this book, more than anything, offers that vision of a better future. And so I want to close by just reading you a few of my favorite extracts. Here's what a better future would look like. And this better future would address pandemics, it would address zoonotic diseases, it would address the destruction of ecosystems, and it would address climate change too. In most places, the air is moist and fresh, even in cities. It feels a lot like walking through a forest, and very likely this is exactly what you're doing. The air is cleaner than it has been since before the Industrial Revolution, thanks to trees everywhere. Homes and buildings produce their own electricity, and because there's no combustion cost, energy is essentially free. It's also more abundant and more efficiently used than ever. For the developing world, the billion people who had no electricity at the start of the 21st century now have energy generated by their own rooftop solar modules or by wind-powered mini-grids in their communities. People who struggled to get clean water can now provide it to their families. Children can study at night. Remote health clinics can operate more effectively. Overall, we've successfully rebuilt, reorganized, and restructured our lives to live in a more localized way. For most people, the new way has turned out to be a better recipe for happiness. We realized that the perpetuation of our species was about far more than just saving ourselves from extreme weather. It was, and I love that they use these words, it was about being good stewards of the land and of each other, because we humans are living things too. When we began the fight for the fate of humanity, she writes, we were thinking only about the species' survival, but at some point we understood it was as much about the fate of our humanity. Humanity itself was only ever as doomed as it believed itself to be, and vanquishing that belief was our true legacy. So the biggest change I think that we've been offered is the opportunity to reset our values. Not changing necessarily what they are, but remembering what they truly are at the foundation of who we are. And for those of us who are Christians, who we are is based on what we believe. We believe that we are new creations. We believe that we've been given a new heart. We believe that we truly desire to walk in the good works that God has prepared for us in advance. And so for us, this is an opportunity, I think, to remember who we are and to act accordingly.